And welcome to the Gornet Podcast. This is episode 29, and I am fired up once again for this one. Eric Larkin joins us. Larkin, four-time All-American, four-time Pac-10 champion, one-time national champ, Hodge Trophy. This guy did a lot of winning. Eric, I am thrilled to have you. Welcome to the Gornet Podcast.
I appreciate it, Shane. Thanks for having me.
You and I, before we recorded, I was asking you about Valiant Prep because I knew you were at Valiant Prep as a coach, but I wasn't sure if you were a teacher or you had another job. I wasn't sure what you did. Talk about Valiant Prep and what you do there and how that all originated.
Okay. Well, I have 5 boys, so I wanted to make sure that I had a structure in place, a program where I felt comfortable. At first, it was going to be me being the coach. I was at a high school. I was building that program. I was just finished up season 4, and stuff didn't go the way I wanted it to. I had some different ways I wanted to take the school as far as the wrestling program, and that wasn't going to happen. So I moved on past that, and my son was going to be a freshman. So that was his 7th grade year. He was going to be a freshman in 2 years. So that next year and the year after, I really put some thought into what I was going to do for them, because I started building the program. It didn't turn out the way I wanted. I didn't want to get back in a situation where I didn't get to do what I wanted to do as far as the program goes. So one day I just called up a buddy of mine and I said, "Hey, what do you think about starting a school?" And he kind of laughed and he said, "Let's do it." I'm like, "All right." So then I called another friend of mine. There's 3 of us that co-founded Valiant, and he's a principal. At that time, he was actually getting schools accredited. So I went to him and I said, "Hey, we want to start a school. What do you know about that?" And he said, that's what I do. As I'm a principal, but I also go and get schools accredited. So we sat down. It went about a year, and we finally just said, "All right, let's go." And we started working on it. By the time my son was a freshman, we got the school started. And that's kind of how the reason I started is because I wanted to make sure that my kids were taken care of. And I didn't really necessarily want to be their coach. I ran into Angel Cejudo, and I said, "Hey, do you want to be the coach of this school, the head coach?" And we sat and talked a couple of times. He's like, "Absolutely." And now here we are in our 7th school year. And that's the way Valiant started. My job here now is, my title is director of operations. I kind of do a little bit of everything. Big decisions, small decisions, the everyday stuff, travel, you name it. And then I'm also in that wrestling room as one of the assistant coaches.
What were a couple of things, Eric? You alluded to it before, a couple of things that you just didn't align with from a philosophy standpoint. What were a couple of those things that were really, really important, that were non-negotiables for you as far as your kids in wrestling?
Well, when I sat down with the administration before I took that job, I said, "Hey," they were a small school. It's a private Catholic school. They were Division 4, so that's small school here, right? So we did a lot of traveling to these outskirt cities, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to wrestle the bigger programs, the best ones. I know we were a small school, but I had a lot of really good kids, and I slowly moved ourselves up to that 5th year. We're going to be Division 1, which was the big schools with the sunny sides of the world, right? So I was excited about that. They made a judgment with the AIA that year where whatever the football team is, every sport has to be. Because at this school, I was the only one that was going to be Division 1. I was the only one progressively moving up, right? So that got overturned. Also, at that time, when I first sat with them, I talked to him about being part of the national preps. I said, "I at least want that on the table when I prove that what we can do. Can we please do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, we'll revisit it then." Well, when we got to that point where we had 6 kids ranked in the top 20 in the country and took 2nd at state, they shut it down. It got shut down above them, according to them. So those 2 things, I was just like, "All right, I'm moving on."
What are your first memories of wrestling as a kid? How did you get involved in the sport?
The first memory I have, I think I was, I don't know, 10 years old, and I was practicing in my living room. My dad had me and my brother drilling moves in the living room. only one time. And then we went to a tournament. It was at Sunnyside High School, so he wanted to take us there. Well, I wrestled 2 matches and I got tech 10-0, 10-0, like right away. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. So 2 years go by and all my friends start going out for the wrestling team. We were all soccer players. I'm like, it was the same season. So they all went to that. I'm like, you know what, Dad, I'm gonna wrestle. And I don't think I lost a match for a little bit after I started that time.
Wow, so you were like in sixth grade, right around sixth grade, 12 years old, when you
Yep.
really kind of dove back in?
Yep. It was the start of my 7th grade years when I started wrestling again. I wrestled one time in the living room, one competition, and then yeah.
I want to talk about this, Eric, because I think this is really important. I mean, you understand as a parent and your involvement as much as anybody in this topic, because when it
Yeah.
comes to wrestling, it's my belief that it's a great sport. It's hard. It's not
Right.
easy. And if somebody tries it and they don't like it right away, if you push them, it's probably going to blow up. If you take your foot off the gas a little bit, maybe they come back. You at least have a chance. Speak about that time and how your parents handled you and didn't push you too hard to stay in wrestling when you gave it a break.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't even remember that time. It was just like they were just like, okay. There was they didn't even really talk about it with me after that. And when I started back up in 7th grade, I was so self-driven that they didn't need to do like if my dad got up in the morning to go wake me up to go do something, I was already gone. So I didn't need that. And that was something that I wanted my boys to have was that inner drive. And I talk to them about that all the time. Like, I can't be the one doing this. I'm not going to be the one doing this. I'll give you suggestions and I might poke you here and there, but for the most part, this is your journey, your sport. Go find your path. Here's a template. I know how to do this. I know how to do it better now because I've been on both sides of it. Um, and yeah, it's very important to have that self drive. Someone pushing you from a young age. I mean, don't get me wrong. That there are those guys out there that were pushed from a young age that are very successful. I think just from the way I view it is the ones that aren't pushed really love the sport. Percentage wise, most of them. The ones that are really pushed, there's a handful of them that really, really love that sport.
Do you think inner self drive, you're born with it, or is it something instilled in you? I mean, what's your philosophy on that inner self motivation?
Yeah, I think it's nature and nurture, right? I think it's both. Um, I definitely was born with it. At least I think I was. I had really good parents, and my dad and mom were extremely hard workers in everything they did. My dad was a firefighter. My mom was she did a couple different things, but she worked at Sunnyside when I left Sunnyside. She was the attendance lady. But when they came home, they had their chores. They made dinner. Like they were just. I had a really good role model in my parents. But I definitely know that I was born with that fire.
So in middle school, you're in seventh grade. These stories just they fascinate me, and at the same time, it's my own belief. It just kind of reiterates my philosophy as far as you don't need to be winning national titles at 6 years old. Like I just think it's crazy. Like you said, it happens for some, but it doesn't happen. The majority, it doesn't work. What was it in middle school about the sport of wrestling that really stuck?
Uh, Kind of being able to go out there and let go of some of that aggression. I remember practicing and not wanting to give up certain positions, not really understanding the positions, but I was really good with my body and understanding where it was at. Um, and then being able to control somebody, I like put my hands on them and move them, and it was just me and them. I remember that from when I was a kid. Like, God, this is a lot of fun. Like, I get to dictate where this guy's going. I really enjoyed that. I like fighting. I like wrestling. I mean, you know what I mean? It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And when someone is able to do that to you, it's a good time to go figure out what do I got to do to shut that down. So it's a chess match. I feel like it's everything is in this sport, the mind, the body, everything.
You go to Sunnyside High School. I mean, that's a legendary high school. Who are some of the guys that you looked up to, like in middle school? Who are some of the hammers that were at that high school at that time?
There was a bunch. Danny Vega, his son won several Fargo titles. Went to Iowa State, then transferred to South Dakota State. His dad, the kid that Marco Vasquez, he was a finalist in Fargo. His senior year, and I was a freshman, he actually beat me out for the 103 spot. So I didn't even make the team my freshman year in high school, and I won a cadet national title. So that's how good that guy was. And then there's a laundry list of guys, but those are the two that really stick out to me.
So you win a cadet title in Fargo, which is basically kicking off right now, and you don't make the high school team as a freshman. What was that like? Did that throw you off mentally, or were what was the? I mean, I don't know if that's happened with anybody.
No, it actually just stoked my fire, really. That was my goal, to beat him by the end of the year. And I remember before going to well, it wasn't far, it was actually Missouri that year. Before going to Missouri, that I was getting him, I was beating him. So that I always kind of looked at that a little bit different when I was younger. Like, I just know I got to get better every day. Like, no one really told me that, like, just to focus on your daily stuff. I just always knew that, like, hey, I just got to get better each day, and it's gonna pay off in the end. Like, I just packed my bag with work. You know what I mean? Like, I'd get up in the morning. I ran all the time. If I got in bed and I was exhausted, it was midnight. If we were out with the family, like going to a movie or something, and I didn't accomplish my checklist, which was like push-ups, I'd get out of bed and I'd make sure I did it, because the next morning I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't get done what I needed to get done. So I didn't feel satisfied.
And then your sophomore year, you take what, third place?
Third place. I was undefeated going to the state tournament, and I lost in the quarters to I think he was a 2 or 3 time state champ. Just really strong guy, stayed in good position. I had a bad match too, but yeah, I took third as a sophomore.
And we'll talk more about this when we get into your college career as well. But one thing, Eric, that I've just really come to appreciate is third place. Talk about this pretty much every podcast. When you want to quit, it's just so easy to hang your head and pack it in. I just think third place is exceptional. Taking third place, even at that age as a sophomore, coming back and taking third. What do you remember about coming back and taking third?
That one was actually probably the toughest third place I've ever taken. As far as my, like, that was devastating to me. Like, I learned how to control that later, but there was no way I was losing at the state tournament my sophomore year. That's everyone around me, the media, myself, like, there's no way I'm losing, and I get beat. And I just remember crying outside, and it was hard to gather my thoughts and get my focus. And Sunnyside won state titles every year, right? So it was a big deal for me to come back and take third. Like, I had to come back and take third. So I learned to kind of get outside myself that year. Like, I got to do this for the team. I know wrestling's an individual sport, but I got to do this for the team and everyone around me that supports me. That's what I think taking third place does. It's like you learn how to care. You take care of everyone else around you. It's not just for you. Yeah, it's great to go take third, but just the support system that you have in your team. You can't be as selfish, because it's easy to just quit, right? It's easy to get beat in the semis and drop and take sixth place. It's hard to come back and take third when you're the one that's supposed to win. It's really, really hard. And I remember that feeling my sophomore year. I've taken third at other tournaments and stuff, but I'll never forget that one. And I learned how to control my emotions from that match.
Then you come back and win 2 state titles. What were the biggest, what put you over the top to get that first state title as a junior?
like again, like my sophomore year, I didn't have a close match. I think my closest match was 10 points. Like I was really supposed to win. I think I was doing all the right things. Uh, the thing that put me over the top is it humbled me. It taught me that I can be beat on any day. Uh, so from that point on, I always went in with that little bit of, I wouldn't necessarily call it doubt, but knowing that, hey, this guy can beat me, so I cannot take him lightly. I've got to put everything out there every single time. I can't be cocky. I can't walk out there like that. I own the mat. I got to have respect. And I think that's what put me over the top.
What is your favorite state tournament memory?
Probably my sophomore year. We won state as a team. My brother was a freshman. He won a state title at the weight class, a couple weight classes below me. Um, I think that was my favorite memory, because watching him win that first state title, and I took third as a sophomore. I think that was my most satisfying state tournament. Watching the team get extremely excited, and it wasn't about me.
What do you remember standing atop the podium as a state champion for the first time?
Relief. Just, yeah, like a weight's lifted off my shoulders. Like that's what you're supposed to do at Sunnyside. You're supposed to go win state titles, right? That's what you wake up in the morning dreaming of, is being a state champ. You walk in that room, there's state champion pictures all over the wall. You want to have a picture on that wall. That's what it meant to me. Just I achieved what I'm supposed to achieve, so I felt relief.
Walk me through the recruiting process. I mean, you're there in Tucson, ultimately end up at Arizona State. What was it like for you? Because you won 2 state titles. Did you have other success, Eric, at Fargo after that first cadet title?
Yeah, I won a 4 Fargo titles. I made a Greco World Team Cadet. Yeah, I had some success. I won the high school nationals when it used to just be seniors in Pennsylvania. I won that tournament. So yeah, I was pretty successful coming out of high school. I'm sorry, what was the question? Why did I start
So
on
where,
that?
no, that's okay. Where did you take your visits?
Oh, yeah. Nowhere. I went to ASU. I knew I was going there from my sophomore year in high school. I wasn't going anywhere. I wanted to stay close to home. I had a girlfriend that I started dating who's now my wife. So yeah, I was coming to ASU. I told everyone, no, I'm not going anywhere.
No way. You didn't go on any visits.
Not one. I would have went to ASU for free.
Really? Was
Yeah.
who was it Ortiz? Was he the coach when you were?
Leroy Smith
It was Leroy.
and
Okay.
Zeke Jones was an assistant. So got letters from them, calls from them. Leroy came and had dinner at my house, south of Tucson, up in the mountains. Yeah. Yeah, it was Leroy and Zeke.
What did what did you appreciate about, Leroy? What was the biggest impact he had on you?
I mean, right off the bat, just his name, right? Smith. That excited me. And then I knew Zeke Jones at the time. Like that was just, they were superstars to me. So I just felt like I didn't really know much about him. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of coverage on, you didn't get to watch a whole lot of video and stuff back then, right? So not like you can now with social media and stuff. You see everything. I think the biggest impact was just knowing that they've been through it, they've done it, and they were going to give me the template for it. So I just trusted that process on knowing that they've been through it.
And you were there, what, 98, 99 season as a true freshman, correct?
Yep.
What are your recollections of getting into that room for the first time?
I remember doing orientation, meeting with the guys in the dorms, all the freshmen. I think there's 11 to 15 of us coming in, and everyone just talking about how we're going to get beat up this first year. And then the first couple of practices and stuff, just listening to the guys come out of practice and how they were getting beat up and stuff. I never had that. Like I walked into that room and I was getting pretty much everybody for the most part. So I was really confident that I could compete at that level right off the bat.
When you look back, Eric, at your developments in let's call it high school, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but peel the onion back a little bit in terms of what are some things now, again, you can look back at this 25 years later going, these couple things paid more dividends than maybe I even expected. Being able to go into a college room and compete when most guys are going in there getting whipped.
Yeah, I think just confidence. I think a lot of times when freshmen get there, they might be shell shocked. I don't know if that necessarily happens as much anymore, like it used to in the past. I think these guys are so good coming out of high school. Uh, like that wasn't very common when I was coming out of high school to be able to step into a room and be an All-American as a true freshman. But nowadays, it's like these guys are winning national titles as true freshmen. I think just going in that room and having confidence. Uh, I never really had any doubt. I knew every day I was getting up and I was going to get better, and I'm just going to uh, impose my will on these guys every day. At least try to, and either I'm going to win or I'm going to push them to the limits where I'm going to break them, and then I'm going to be confident. I think that's what it was.
So you're a true freshman, go to the national tournament, 1999 at Penn State, All-American. You lose to Cody Sanderson in the semifinals, and you finish in fourth place. What were you most proud of being on that stand as a true freshman?
Making the weight all year. I made 133. So there's a story behind that. I was supposed to redshirt my freshman year. They had a guy there that ranked top 10, Sean Ford, uh, and we both entered the Sunkiss International Tournament. And the weight was like 132 and a half or whatever the weight class was. And I made my way through that bracket. I think I got to the quarters or semis, and I lost to a Cuban, Jesus Wilson, and uh, ended up dropping. I got into the Conti semis, and I wrestled the kid that was ranked number 2 in the country at 133. I didn't know who he was, Stan Green from Fresno, and I teched him in a minute. And Leroy sprints across the gymnasium. He's running at me. He's like, "Do you know who you just beat?" I'm like, "No, coach. Who I beat?" He goes, "The number 2 guy in the country." I said, "Oh, cool." And he goes, "You're wrestling this year." I'm like, "What?" I said, "I can't make this weight every day." But I didn't say that because I was a young kid. I was just like, "Okay, yes, sir." You know what I mean? Sean Ford got hurt at that tournament. He broke his ankle or something. So I got moved into that spot. I was walking around 155, and I'm 5'10". So making 133 all year was horrible. It was not a good time, but I did it. Um, and that third weigh-in for NCAA's making scratch, I was done. I'll never forget before that third place match, I was like, "Hey guys, like," and I never really spoke up like that, but I was in this position where I know I'm gonna get smashed right now. There's no way I'm winning this match. I could barely like walk. I was just dead. And I went to the coach and said, "Hey, I don't want to do this." Like, and they never heard me say that. And they're like, "You're gonna wrestle." I'm like, "All right." So I did, and ended up getting beat. But yeah, making that weight was brutal. So even making 141, I put size on. I should have been a 49 pounder. If I would have redshirted my freshman year, I would have been a 49 pounder every year.
Want to go back to something you just talked about. You wrestle a guy, you don't know who he is. You just go out and compete, and you beat some guy. Was that always kind of your approach? I mean, was it just show up, don't look at you just show up and wrestle? I mean, is that how you were in college? I mean, what was your approach to big matches?
No, the big matches, I scouted the guys. I watched them. I was just new to the college scene, and like I said, there wasn't social media and stuff like that then, so I didn't really follow it like I do now, or like I did in college. So when I was coming out of high school, I really didn't know who anyone was except for like the Brands brothers, or you know what I mean. So I at that time as a freshman, it was really easy to take a big match on because I didn't care. I was just going to go out there and wrestle as hard as I could, and if I win, I win. So it was really easy being the underdog as a true freshman. Um, uh, Definitely as I got older, I started scouting guys, especially guys I had wrestled a couple of times, trying to break down where they're good, their positions that they want to be in. Uh, but yeah, I definitely took advantage of my freshman year not knowing anybody.
Did you what was I going to ask you? Did you have any like favorite college wrestlers when you were in high school? You just mentioned the Brands brothers. Do you have anybody that you loved watching? I know it wasn't as accessible as you said with TV and social media. It's a whole new ball game now, but at that time, were you a fan of anybody in particular?
Yeah, the Abbott brothers, definitely. Just their funk, their slickness, their speed. Yeah, I was really intrigued by those guys.
You had an interesting career from the standpoint of you go 4, 3, 2, 1. So you take in 2001, that's the one that was impressive. You lose to Grant Hero, Wisconsin, and then you came back to beat him, for third place, getting that next best thing. What, how did you handle, that loss and then coming back and finding a way to get it done? What do you remember from that tournament?
Well, it kind of starts back 3 days before Pac 10s. So 3 days before Pac 10s, I tore my knee. It was a bucket handle tear. So my knee would lock on me and I couldn't get it unlocked. And my options were have surgery and not compete, or tape my leg with a bend in it where it's locked, wrestle through the Pac-10 tournament with a bent leg where I could barely use it, fly home that night. I didn't even get on the podium, I don't think. They flew me home that night after I won the Pac-10 title. Had surgery that morning, and that's Pac-10s was 2 weeks before the NCAAs. Well, a week and a half, right? So the first time I wrestled live from my surgery to that first match with Grant was when they blew the whistle at NCAAs and we shook hands. That's when I wrestled live. They were shooting up my knee every match. So as the tournament went on, I mean, not my first match. I had a match before that. So whoever I wrestled prior to that, but Grant was my first like real test in that tournament, and he got me. But as that tournament progressed, I kind of started getting my rhythm again and feeling better. And by the time that third place match came around, I already felt great, felt confident, like I wasn't going to get beat. So it was kind of scary because at one point when I tore my knee and my knee kept locking, there was a chance I wasn't going to wrestle the tournament. But when the doctor said we can tape it like this, do you want to do it? I said, of course, I'll do it.
Yeah, you lose to Grant here in the quarters, and then you beat him for third.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around, Eric. At that level, I mean, you're injured. I mean, you're not hurt, you're injured, and there's a difference. Like, how do you put it together mentally and nut up, for lack of a better way to say it, and get it done?
That's all I knew. I mean, we were taught from like if you're hurt, you're hurt, right? You suck it up. You don't show weakness. Um, just kind of keep your composure, right? So when I was injured, I always tried to do the same thing, even when like with that, like I just always tried to hide it. And I remember when I heard it, I ran out of the room and I went and sat in the locker room, and I'm just like, I don't even know if I want to tell the coaches, but I probably should because I can't straighten my leg out. Like I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want any buzz around me being hurt. So that's kind of just how I was brought up, unless I was injured, like you said, right? So I just did it. And I just knew I had to do it.
Eric, we'll be back with more. This has been great. Episode 1 with Eric Larkin. Looking forward to episode 2. Thank you so much.
Thank you.